Terrifying secrets of the cursed Appalachia prison. Soldiers discovered sinister forces within. Sarah stood at the edge of Hope's Hollow, her heart pounding as the decaying prison loomed before her like a beast ready to swallow whole. Tales whispered of soldiers who had returned to this very town, marked by a darkness that twisted their souls. The air was thick with dread, an unshakable sense that the walls around her held secrets more terrible than mere bricks and mortar. Shadows danced in the corner of her eye, flickers that felt alive, almost as if they were watching her. Something bad was lurking here. She could feel it in her bones. The town itself was frozen in time, each house creaking under the weight of memories. The wooden structures seemed to lean in, listening, keeping their secrets close. And yet, through it all, she could sense an uninvited chill creeping down her spine. The faces of her childhood friends, now neighbors, appeared strained, smiles painted on like masks to hide their fears. Their eyes darted away as she mentioned her father. The dread in their expression sent waves of unease through her, as if they were sharing silent conversations in a language she couldn't decipher. As night fell, that familiar sanctuary of her father's home morphed into an ominous citadel. The creaks of the floorboards echoed like whispers, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the house itself was keeping watch. Lily slept soundly, utterly oblivious to the world's horrors. Sarah moved quietly to check on her, but as she stood in the darkened hallway, an icy draft failed to carry with it any sense of safety. Panic surged through her when she heard it, a faint, distant clanging like chains dragging across the floor. Just the wind, she murmured to herself, but deep down, she felt the truth was far worse. She glanced at the window just in time to see a shadow flicker past the curtain. Heart racing, she was frozen in place, breathing shallowly, as her mind spun a web of possibilities, each worse than the last. A knock broke her tranced neighbors with forced smiles bearing condolences. They avoided her eyes, the tension heavy in the air. They knew something, these once friendly faces. The truth was buried deep, intertwined with the very roots of the town. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The prison silhouette loomed even larger now, a dark omen against the starlit sky. Curiosity clawed at Sarah, mingling with her dread. As she settled back onto her bed, another noise sliced through the night, a low, haunting moan. It was so familiar yet so distant, wrapping around her like fog. It urged her to unravel the truth surrounding her father's disappearance. Lightning cracked through the clouds, illuminating the prison just long enough for Sarah to see something flicker, a lantern's glow dancing in the upper window. A reason to search, a promise of darkness yet to unfold. Should she venture closer? Should she awaken that which sleeps beneath the crumbling stones? The chains rattled once more in her mind, whispering her name as she felt the weight of hidden legacies threatening to drag her into their abyss. She had to choose between safety and truth, but could she go back to the way things were? And worse, if she opened this door, would she and Lily emerge unscathed? Shadows deepened around the prison, thick and suffocating. Sarah sat up in bed, heart racing, as whispers of the past clawed at her thoughts. The distant moaning swirled in her mind like a storm, echoing secrets she may never be ready to hear. It was almost a song floated through the air, a melody tainted with sorrow. She couldn't comprehend its roots, but that sound beckoned her closer, gathering her courage like a shield. She slipped from her bed. The floorboards creaked underfoot, protesting her every step as she crept down the hallway. Lily snored softly, the innocent sound like a heartbeat in the surrounding void, urging Sarah on. The knot in her stomach twisted tighter with every breath. Outside, the moon hung high, casting long, twisted shadows that danced beneath the prison's crumbling facade. Debris crunched under her sneakers, each step a reminder of her fragile solitude. Laughter from ghostly children cut through the silence, their joy stark against the eerie calm. She shuddered, feeling a heat rise in her chest. What kind of laughter belonged here? As she neared the prison, the air thickened. There was something oppressive about it, a suffocating weight distorting her senses. The glowing lantern flickered again, reminding her of the choices ahead, each more dire than the last. Should she confront the past or bury it alongside her father's mysteries? She drew closer, feeling heat radiate from the building as though the very stones were alive. An iron gate, long rusted, creaked ominously as Sarah pulled it open. The sound reverberated, a ghostly echo of forgotten cries. Inside, darkness seemed to wait, eager to consume her. With each cautious step, she ventured down the corridor. The walls closed in, paintings of pain and suffering trapped within chipped plaster. The chair in the corner, once holding the weight of time, now seemed to shudder in her vision. Mysteries of the past, shackled souls whispering tales of torment and despair. Suddenly, the clanging of chains rang out again, this time clearer, sharper. Panic surged. Sarah's breath quickened, heart pounding against her ribcage like a forsaken prisoner desperate to escape. "It's just the wind," she muttered, a feeble attempt to quell the rising tide of fear, but doubt gnawed at her insides. Then she saw it, a figure darting down a side corridor, disappearing into the blackness. Adrenaline spiked through her veins. Was it a trick of her mind? Or something more sinister? "Hello?" she called, voice trembling. There was no answer, just the oppressive silence that seemed to mold the shadows. The lantern's light flickered again, and she froze, breath catching in her throat. The glow pulsed, revealing fleeting images of faces twisted in pain, eyes wide with despair. They stormed through her thoughts, filling her with dread. "I need to leave," she thought, but her feet remained sticky, rooted to the spot from where they wavered uncertainly. From the depths of the prison, she heard a low growl. It rose, breaking the silence, raw and terrifying. It pierced the air like winter's breath, chilling her blood. "Get out," whispered the sound, yet it felt alive, as if it came from someone not wanting to let go, but just then, a cold hand gripped her shoulder from behind. Fear washed over her like an avalanche. Spinning around, she faced darkness. The figure loomed closer, indistinct yet undeniably there. Heart racing, she stumbled backward into the shadows, into the unknown. What lay hidden behind those aching walls? With every ounce of courage, she took a step forward, but just as her foot landed, a voice from the abyss echoed, "He wouldn't let you go." Had she opened a door she could never close? The chilling reality settled in her bones as she took another step toward the waiting dark. The darkness enveloped Sarah like a thick fog, pulling her deeper into its depths. She could barely see the walls, now just a shadowy outline against the meager light of the lantern. Her heart hammered like a drum in her ears, drowning out the distant whispers that had once seemed so alluring. What mysteries had she unlocked? What terror awaited her just beyond the reach of the pale glow? A sound echoed from somewhere far down the corridor. A soft shuffle, definitely not the wind. Panic clawed at her throat, but she forced herself to move. One step, then another, the crunch of gravel beneath her sneakers swallowed by the thick silence. She needed to know what lay beyond the veil of darkness. Perhaps it was connected to her father, to the truths he carried to his grave. As she advanced, her eyes adjusted, catching hints of shapes in the blackness. Shadows stretched and twisted, almost as if they were alive, reaching for her. She shivered, fighting the urge to flee. What had begun as curiosity morphed into dread. A door loomed ahead, half open, a sliver of darkness within darkness. It beckoned her like a siren's call. The laughter of phantom children echoed again, joyful yet haunting, weaving a disturbing tapestry of innocence and horror. "Is anyone here?" Sarah called, her voice barely above a whisper. Silence answered, heavy and suffocating. She paused, straining to hear over the sound of her beating heart. Then, from the depths of the open door, she spotted movement. A figure hesitated at the edge, vague and flickering in the lamplight. It was there, but then it wasn't. "Hello?" She called again, desperation slipping into her tone. The shadows shifted, and the figure stepped into the light, a child. Dressed in ragged remnants of what was once a bright-colored shirt, they stood barefoot, eyes wide with eternal fear. "Help me," the child croaked, voice cracking like dry leaves. A shiver raced down Sarah's spine. This was no ordinary plea. Behind that innocent facade lay stories of horrors unspoken. What are you?" she stammered, the question hardly leaving her lips. But before the child could answer, the growl returned, louder this time. The air vibrated with it, as if the very stones of the prison were sentient, vibrating with rage. The child's expression turned from plea to terror, and they backed away quickly, disappearing into the impenetrable darkness. "No!" Sarah shouted, a panic overwhelming her. She sprinted toward the door where the child had vanished, but the growl transformed into guttural laughter that echoed through the hall. It mocked her, wrapping around her like chains. Just then, the lantern sputtered, flickering wildly. Shadows danced like demons, twisting the air. Not knowing where to go, Sarah pressed on, arms raised like shields against invisible threats. She could feel the air change, thickening with despair. Then came a sharp laugh, so close, so taunting. "You shouldn't have come here, Sarah." The voice was deep and sinister, oozing malice. It should have sent her fleeing, but a surge of anger ignited in her chest. "Who are you?" she yelled into the abyss, her voice trembling but defiant. "I am the keeper," it whispered, each word like ice filling her veins. "And you, my dear, are just another soul to imprison." The floor shook beneath her feet, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah felt the ground slip away, as if the entire building wanted to swallow her whole. She quickly turned to reach for the exit, heart pounding, pulse racing. But darkness thickened around her, grabbing at her legs, pulling her in. With one last burst of energy, Sarah lunged toward the flickering light, hope guiding her through the encroaching shadows. Yet, as the exit loomed before her, a chilling thought froze her in place. What if leaving meant abandoning the child? Was there something she could do? Clenching her fists, Sarah whispered to herself, "I can't leave them." Before she could make a decision, a silhouette emerged at the door, the child standing resolutely. "You have to choose, Sarah. Them or you." The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air. A decision must be made. But what lay ahead for Sarah? Only the shadows knew. The child's shadowed figure seemed to pulse with fear, their wide eyes shimmering in the dim light. Time stretched, turning each second into an eternity. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as the growl returned, louder, ominous, an iron grip tightening around her resolve. The walls quivered, as if echoing the pain of lost souls. "What do you mean, them or you?" she said, voice shaking. Each word felt like a stone thrown into the churning darkness, stirring whatever lurked there. "They are trapped," the child rasped, glancing back toward the heavy shadows creeping along the walls, where unseen horrors awaited. "You have to make a choice, or they'll take you too. You can't save everyone." Sarah's heart pounded, caught between the weight of urgency and the suffocating dread. Images of her father flashed in her mind. The struggles he faced, the secrets that drove him to this cursed place. Would he want her to abandon another child to this darkness? The choice felt impossible, a cruel twist of fate. The laughter, now a chorus, flooded her ears, full of malice and mockery. "Little girl lost, choose." The keeper's voice rolled through the ether, a twisting serpent in the air, sinking into her mind. A chill gripped Sarah's belly, but it wasn't just fear, it was an ache, a need to fight against the darkness that crept closer, threatening to shroud her completely. Biting her lip, she took a tentative step toward the child. "I won't leave you," she declared fiercely, though doubt gnawed at her resolve. "Show me how to help." "No." The child screamed, terror etching their features, eyes wide with a sense of impending doom. "You can't fight them. It'll be worse for you. Run." The shadows became more aggressive, snapping and hissing, as the air grew heavier. Something twisted in the darkness behind her. Sarah's instincts screamed to flee, but she couldn't turn her back now, not when a child haunted by despair needed her. Moments blurred as she hesitated, the anxiety pooling into a weighty knot in her stomach. She could feel cold tendrils of something dark wrapping around her ankles, pulling her down, whispering sweet lies about safety. "Please don't leave me." The child's plea cut through the ambient chaos like a knife, urging her to act. A flicker of vision sparked in Sarah's mind. Whispers about a relic, an object of power hidden within the prison that could reveal truths, break bonds of suffering. What if that was the key? "I'll find it," she shouted defiantly into the shadows. "I'll find a way to save everyone. Just give me a chance." The child nodded, a shimmer of hope mingling with despair. "The chamber at the end of the hall, but hurry." They gestured frantically to the nearly obscured path stretching behind them, a route swallowed in darkness and threat. As Sarah took her first step toward the chamber, darkness surged forward as if enraged by her decision. She sprinted, fear propelling her, desperately trying to keep her thoughts focused on the task at hand. The growls escalated into a cacophony, shaking her bones. She had to reach that chamber. She had to find the relic. With each step closer, she felt the chill of the shadows wrapping tighter, fingers caressing her neck like a predator preparing to strike. The exit began to shatter behind her, phantoms swirling, screeching as their laughter morphed into blood-curdling howls. "Sarah!" The child's voice echoed, desperate. "Don't look back." But as she ran, a surge of panic tugged at her heartstrings. What was chasing her now? Was she truly leaving the child behind to face the malevolence alone? Was her choice already made? As shadows loomed larger, Sarah burst through an archway into an unexpected light, blinding and radiant, illuminating a vast chamber that twisted reality around her. And there, atop a pedestal bathed in golden glow, lay the relic. Yet, just as she reached for it, the room quaked violently, and the keeper's voice thundered, resonating with fury. "You cannot escape your fate, little girl." The shadows writhed closer, drawing on her fear. Sarah was trapped between pursuit and hope, but she dared to grasp the relic. Would it save her or consume her entirely? As the light flickered like a dying flame, she locked eyes with the child still lost in the darkness. The choice loomed larger than ever. Hers was no longer just survival, but the fate of the souls tethered to the horrors of this place. In that critical moment, Sarah understood, sometimes, darkness is the only path to light. But would she have the strength to embrace it? Then came a deafening roar, a promise of unending dread. And as the shadows clawed for her, she prepared to confront the ultimate horror that awaited. Would she uncover the truth, or seal her own fate? The moment Sarah's fingers brushed against the relic, an electric pulse surged through her, a mix of terror and hope. The golden light wrapped around her, sweet and seductive, yet the growls intensified, echoing like 1,000 angry voices. It felt alive, almost sentient, vibrating with every heartbeat. But the relic didn't help. It felt heavy in her grasp, as if pulling her down into the abyss where shadows writhed hungrily, eager for a feast. A whisper slipped through the air, chilling her spine. "Take it or lose everyone, no." She screamed, clutching the relic tighter, but the shadows tightened their grip as if sensing her wavering resolve. She could almost hear their mockery claws scratching against stone, promises of power and despair filtering through the night. "Turn back, Sarah. Trust no one." A jagged voice snapped. The child's warning echoed ominously in her mind, but she couldn't abandon them. Not now. The shimmering relic felt like the only way to push back against the encroaching dark. With a surge of defiance, she raised the relic high. It pulsed, illuminating the chamber. Shadows recoiled. Growls turned to yelps, sharp and panicked. The vivid light blazed like a dawn, threatening to cast them away, but the keeper's voice drowned the glimmers of hope. "You think you can conquer me?" The walls shuddered, threatening to collapse, a throbbing heartbeat of fear vibrating all around her. Her heart began to race, matching the resonance of dread. She couldn't falter, not when so much hinged on this moment. "Release the souls," she yelled into the void, her voice shaking but resolute. "I command you." The relic warmed in response, a gentle pulse of light that rippled like waves in a dark sea. She concentrated hard. A soft voice floated back, mocking her affirmation. You have no power here, little girl, just echoes of what you wish to believe. The shadows lunged at her through the blinding light, a mass of darkness infused with malice and rage, swarming over her like a tide. Sarah fought against them, but the relic's glow flickered and faltered. She twisted back toward the heart of the chamber, breaths uneven and ragged, the child's face flitting through her mind, eyes wide with terror and desperation. Stay strong. She shouted loudly, though her strength was waning. She could feel the shadows tugging at her, clawing at her legs, whispering sinister threats. Suddenly, she remembered the stories her father used to tell. The relic could reveal hidden truths. Show me. She pleaded, raising it higher. A blinding flash of light erupted, enveloping her in a kaleidoscope of colors and memories. She felt the weight of every soul trapped nearby, every cry of despair resonating within her, merging into one painful scream that shattered her heart. Waves of sorrow crashed over her, faces forming from the light. Lost children, desperate parents, all trapped in their shadows, pleading for salvation. Their cries melded with her own anxiety, creating a symphony of despair that echoed within the walls of the prison. Now. A voice boomed, and without understanding why, Sarah slammed the relic to the ground. The earth trembled beneath it, and the reaction was immediate and violent. The relic shattered into 1,000 gleaming shards, scattering across the floor like stars tumbling from the sky. As the shards spread, the light surged outward, enveloping the shadows, and one by one, anguished cries erupted from the depths of darkness. The shadows twisted and contorted, shrieking as the relic's remnants banished them. But as silence fell, Sarah realized where was the child. The room felt impossibly empty. No. Panic clawed at her throat. She spun around, desperately searching for the youth's familiar figure, but only shadows remained, silent and still. Then she noticed a shimmering ribbon of light, part of the relic, with a consciousness of its own, pulsing gently. It beckoned her, weaving through the chamber toward a darkened corner. Come back. She shouted, running after the flickering sequence of light. The ribbony glow twisted and flickered. Ominously, but before Sarah could catch it, the shadows surged back, furious, trying to reclaim what they had lost. Heart racing, Sarah sprinted after the escaping light. In her gut, she felt that the truth was just out of reach, taunting her with the promise of lost souls and hidden horrors, but when she reached the end of the hall, the shadows closed in, smothering the glow. Breathless, Sarah gasped, "What's next?" And as darkness swallowed the final beams of the relic's light, an answer hovered just beyond her grasp, dreadful and haunting. Would she embrace it? What secrets did this place really hold? The cold embraced Sarah as the shadows thickened like a suffocating fog. She felt their breath against her skin, a chilling reminder of the dangers lurking just beyond her sight. A sickening dread twisted in her stomach, urging her forward while instinct told her to retreat. Stay back. She warned as the air thickened with a stench, something rotten and old, a feeling of death lingering nearby. Every instinct screamed at her to flee. But the ribbon of light flickered energetically, a beacon amid the overwhelming black, and she couldn't abandon it, not now, not when it seemed to offer a sliver of hope. Where are you? She shouted into the abyss, but the depths swallowed her words. The light pulsed just ahead, hazy and thin. She pushed forward, driven by the urgency to see the child again. As she stumbled into the corner, her foot caught on something soft yet unyielding. Her heart stopped, and she glanced down to see what looked like a heap of clothes with flesh beneath. Panic rushed back. She swung around, scanning the periphery, praying she wasn't alone. Focus. She hissed at herself, her breaths rapid, a drum of fear echoing in her chest. The glowing ribbon swirled above, desperately beckoning her. She reached out, every nerve screaming for retreat, yet she moved closer. With a sudden surge, the light flickered violently before exploding outward in vibrant hues. It struck the walls, dancing off ancient stone like lightning. But the shadows screeched, converging once more. Not again. She howled, racing towards the ribbon, weaving through the chaos. It felt so close yet less than tangible, slipping through the crevices of darkness that gnawed at her heels. The chamber vibrated with energy, a palpable pulse that mirrored Sarah's racing heart. Her mind churned with flashes of images: children in despair, frantic parents searching, the myriad souls trapped just beyond her reach. Her father's stories sprang back to her, warnings of angry spirits, relentless in their quest for release. "Come on," she murmured, struggling against the pulling shadows. She had to understand, she had to chase the truth to reclaim the lost. "Sarah, you must choose," a voice whispered from the darkness, a familiar tone coated with malice. That wasn't just an echo, it was a memory. Just like before. "No." She spat defiantly, shaking her head against the suffocating thoughts. "I won't let you control me." But the shadowy tendrils lunged, wrapping around her arms, squeezing tighter, squeezing clearer thoughts out of her mind. She screamed, twisting in panic as a flood of whispers invaded her head. "Just give in, darling. Join us." The dank air thickened, swirling with oppression, eroding her resolve. Desperation clawed at her throat, threatening to choke off her cries and drown her in absolute darkness. With strength birthed from horror, she plunged her hand into the flickering ribbon, feeling warmth and an unfathomable longing radiating from it. It was everything she desperately sought. And with one impulsive move, she ripped it in half. Light exploded, white and pure, washing over the chamber. The shadows howled, losing their grip. The cries of lost children filled the air, surrounding her, pulling in tighter. Yet through that chaos, something shifted. "I can help you." The child's voice echoed, now full of boldness. "You have to believe." As the shadows thrashed wildly, the ribbon glimmered with a new resilience, vibrating with urgency and life. Could she trust it? What if it was a trap? Questions erupted in her mind, tangled with fear, yet amid that moment of decision, the echoes of souls grew stronger, roaring a chorus of hope and despair. The chamber erupted with their cries, and Sarah staggered, the weight of their sorrow pressing down like a storm. "What do I do?" she gasped, caught between the light and the engulfing dark. As the shadows bubbled and swarmed around her, seeking to reclaim their hold, every part of her screamed for clarity. The light surged higher, illuminating their wrath in stark contrast as she braced for the final decision, but just as clarity threatened to dawn, the chamber trembled anew. A crack split the ground beneath her feet as the shadows twisted and coiled, coalescing into a form too dark to comprehend. "Foolish girl," the voice roared, echoing off the stone walls, "you don't know what you've awakened." Heart pounding in her ears, Sarah braced for impact, knowing the next moments would seal her fate, and perhaps the fates of many. What horrors await? She breathed, dread tightening its grip as the shadows surged forward, hungry for vengeance. And in that heart-stopping stillness, the question loomed: could she still uncover the truth, or would she become just another lost soul in this cursed prison? The world erupted into chaos. The light burst forth like a nuclear explosion, igniting shadows that writhed and twisted. Sarah felt the heat of it on her skin, both a comfort and a terror. The whispers became screams, a cacophony of lost souls desperate for rescue and revenge. "Don't let them take you," the child's voice cried, piercing through the madness. The shadows darted in a flurry, striking like vipers, searching, hunting for their prey. Sarah stood frozen, eyes wide, every instinct screaming for her to move. Suddenly, the horrifying form materialized, a dark figure, grotesque and towering, draped in billowing shadows. Its face remained hidden, but its eyes glowed like hollow lanterns, piercing the veil of despair. "Release them, or face the consequence." It thundered, the words weaving into the very air around her, vibrating with a deep menace. Sweat trickled down Sarah's spine as she took a shaky step back. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, trying to regain her composure. She was losing herself, losing this fight. The shadows lashed out again, tendrils snaking around her, pulling her closer to the figure. "You have opened the door. It screeched, a bone-rattling sound that echoed through the chamber. Now you will pay. Pay for what? Panic clawed at her throat as she struggled against the dark binds. I didn't mean to disturb anything. Her heart raced, hammering against her ribs so hard she feared it might burst. You know why, the figure hissed, a voice riddled with malice. You're just like the rest. They came, disrupting our peace. They sought what they shouldn't have. The shadows around Sarah writhed in agreement, a chorus of sinister murmurs rising and falling like the tide. Stop. I want to help. Words tumbled from her lips, frantic, desperate. Behind her, the faint glimmer of the severed light flickered uncertainly, as if it, too, fought to emerge from the darkness. I want to save them. The monstrous figure paused, its glowing eyes narrowing. Sarah sensed a sliver of doubt in its voice. What can a child of the living do for the lost? I can show you that they can be released. She cried, pushing against the pressure. Let me restore what is lost. Give them peace. You don't have to hurt me. Laughter echoed around her, though it sounded more like a death knell. Peace. You ask for things you do not understand. Their cries only fuel this prison. The shadows surged, and Sarah screamed as they tightened around her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Let me go. She gasped, struggling, but it felt hopeless. Then, in a burst of clarity amid the chaos, she recalled her father's tales. The ribbon. She shouted. You need light. Let it in. For a moment, the shadows froze, then the figure roared, it is too late for light. The darkness surged like a wave, threatening to swallow her whole, a palpable weight pressing against her from all sides. As breath began to slip away, Sarah clenched her fists, summoning her last reserves. With a holler that came from the depths of her being, she shouted, I'm not afraid. And in that moment, the ribbon flared a blinding pulse of warmth that sparked a fire in the cold, damp air. The shadows hissed and recoiled, the dark figure wavering. No. You will not win. It shrieked, but the light surged on, wild and uncontainable. In that frantic surge, Sarah felt something shift. She wasn't just fighting for her life, she was fighting for all the souls lost within the prison. And then she realized if the shadows were terrified of the light, there was a way to use it. One action that could turn this battle in her favor, but before she could act, the chamber erupted again. The ground shook, and cracks spidered outward beneath her feet, threatening to swallow all. Darkness gnawed at the fringes of her vision. Your choice must be made. The figure lambasted, its form warping and twisting violently. Will you embrace the light, or fade into the dark with them? With that ultimatum hanging in the air, Sarah teetered on the edge of decision and despair, caught between the ravaging shadows and the precious light. Darkness coiled and tightened, threatening to pull her back into its never-ending pit of sorrow, and just as she thought all hope was lost, she made a final choice, a choice that would unleash unimaginable consequences. What had she awakened, and could she survive it? The ground beneath her cracked open wider, a deep chasm threatening to consume her whole. Panic surged through Sarah, a primal scream escaping her lips as she felt the weight of the world's darkness pressing down. Choose. The figure roared, its voice booming and echoing, each word a hammer against her mind. In that instant, her heart racing, Sarah felt something flicker inside her, an ember of determination battling against the consuming dread. I choose light. She cried, voice trembling but resolute. At her declaration, the ribbon exploded, a vortex of searing energy radiating out. The shadows recoiled, howling in agony, their whispers morphing into shrieks as they lost their hold on her. The light surged forward, illuminating the chamber, peeling back layer upon layer of darkness clinging to the walls. And then she saw them. Faces twisted in torment, souls trapped in the inky void, stretching out their gnarled hands in desperation. They were calling to her, their voices layered like a terrifying choir, juxtaposed against the now fading sorrows of the shadows around her. Help us. They moaned, their sorrow tangible as if it could wrap around her like a fog. Not just my freedom, she realized, but theirs too. In that moment, Sarah understood her quest was greater than herself. Her father's stories, the whispered warnings of a prison cursed from the very beginning, echoed through her mind. She felt a connection between the light and the lost souls, a tie binding their fates together. Peace. You need peace. She shouted, desperately hoping her voice could reach them. Let me help you find it. The dark figure lunged forward, its form morphing into a monstrous shape, closing the distance. You fool! It shrieked, rage twisting its features. You dare think you can banish us? The shadows flared angrily, striking out in desperation. But Sarah held fast, drawing strength from the brilliant ribbon pulsating around her. Feel the light. She urged the souls imprisoned in the dark, her resolve strengthening as their tortured expressions began to shift, hope gingerly replacing despair. Follow me. Gather in the light, set yourselves free. She charged forward, emboldened by her words. The ribbon extended, wrapping around the lost souls. The shadow figure grasped at them, but they slipped away, diving into the embrace of her blazing energy. A collision. The world combining the pulsing light with desperate spirits created shockwaves, illuminating the vast void. The horrors roared, their cries poured out like a tidal wave. Stop! Stop! It shouted, the terror in its tone almost palpable. They belong to the darkness, and you will pay. Sarah felt the weight of collective fears pressing against her. Her limbs trembled, sweat slicked her skin as she fought to maintain her grip on the light. She focused, remembering the stories of courage and resilience. Could she muster enough to save them all? But even with her outcry, the shadows rallied. As they writhed and twisted, their black tendrils barreling toward her, she sensed a powerful choice looming. Would she sacrifice herself for the souls? Let go. Let them go. The shadows hissed, desperation rising as their hold weakened at the mercy of the radiance. Never. Sarah cried. She thrust her hand into the blinding light, feeling every ounce of love spill from her heart into the glow. Around her, a storm brewed, chaos reigning as the souls surged nearer, hungry for release. And then the moment fractured. The very air shimmered as the shadows flickered and bucked, desperate to hold their ground, their breath a warm, stifling presence against her skin. With everything at stake, she drew the light deeper, deeper, knowing this was the only chance to free them all. Was it enough? As the cacophony reached a fever pitch, something shifted. A ripple of energy split the air, blinding her in an explosion, a brilliant flash that pulsed with life. But amid the incandescent glory, darkness still lingered, a whisper, a promise of wrath. Your NIST over it hissed, slinking back, wrapping itself in shadows and leaving a chilling reminder of its imminent return. And as the air settled, Sarah gasped, pulling in breath after breath, yet confusion gnawed in her gut. What terror awaited her next? Who would she face when the shadows returned? The fight was far from over. The aftermath of the blinding explosion left Sarah disoriented, the remnants of light still flickering in her vision like ghostly afterimages. As the dust settled, an eerie silence enveloped the chamber. Her heart raced, each beat thudding against her ribcage like a war drum echoing in an empty valley. She staggered slightly, regaining her footing, scanning the remnants of the chaos that had just unfolded. Where were the souls? Had she really freed them? Then she heard it, a whisper, faint at first, but growing stronger like the pull of a tide. It came from the shadows. They slithered around the edges of her vision, dark fingers reaching out, seeking to reclaim what they'd lost. You think you've won? The voice was low and chilling, reminiscent of a forgotten evil. You're merely a candle extinguished, easily replaced. Her resolve hardened, but the creeping dread clawed at her mind. The darkness seemed to breathe, curling and shifting in ways that made her skin crawl. She could feel it wrapping around her ankles like ice. She took a step back, trembling, but forced herself to hold steady. I will face you again. She called out, her voice stronger than she felt. You can't have them. The shadows laughed, a sound that slithered through the air, wrapping around her sanity. They are always ours, Sarah. You cannot save what was never meant to be saved. Join us, and we may release you from this burden. A jolt of anger surged through her. It fueled her. I'd rather die. She shouted. The light that had once pulsed around her flickered uncertainly. She had felt the truth in the shadow's claim. A part of her was grappling with hopelessness as doubt clawed at her and wanted to snuff out the flame of courage. Suddenly, the chamber started to shift. Walls twisted, bending like they were alive. Her pulse quickened, and she ran, darting forward into an unknown corridor, unsure of where it might lead. Behind her, the whispers ramped up, growing increasingly frantic and menacing. They echoed loudly, reverberating against the stone. Run. But know this: nothing you do will shelter you from the truth of your lineage. Panic clawed at her throat. What truth? What did they mean? A glance over her shoulder sent shivers spilling down her spine as a shadow surged forward, pushing against the ether, clawing toward her. The corridor seemed endless, stretching into a yawning abyss. Her breath became labored, short gasps filling the air. She stumbled but pressed on, feeling fate's cold breath at her back, urging her to give in, like a serpent whispering promises of power if only she would yield. And then, a flash of memory collided with her thoughts, her father's words. The stories of sacrifices, the warning of an ancient evil that lurked in the dark, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. She had never believed wholeheartedly, but now, they felt so significant, so vital. The shadows congealed behind her, growing larger and angrier as they shouted, "You cannot escape your fate." In the midst of despair, she spotted a door, old, creaky, partly ajar, light spilling through the gap. She darted toward it, hope surging within her. Was this the exit? The light seemed alive, a promise of safety. But as she reached for the handle, dread filled her. If she opened it, she might find another horror waiting on the other side. That a cacophony of howls erupted behind her, a haunting promise of darkness closing in. Would she uncover the truth of her lineage and its curse? Or would she fall prey to the very shadows she fought against? With trembling hands, Sarah grasped the handle, her heart roaring in defiance. She pushed the door ajar. What awaited her beyond that threshold? The door creaked open, a reluctant witness to the fight between light and dark. Sarah stepped through, not fully knowing if she was escaping or stumbling into a deeper abyss. A burst of blinding light enveloped her, causing her to shield her eyes with her arm. It soaked into her skin, infusing her with warmth. Sunlight streamed through broken windows, painting shards of color on the cracked walls. It felt real, exhilarating, like a breath of fresh air surfacing after a long dive. Hope surged within her, but shadows still lingered at the edges, whispering dread into the folds of her mind. You think you've won? They curled around her like a predatory beast, taunting, "We'll always be here." Each word was a weight pulling her back into the darkness. No. Sarah shouted, clenching her fists. You're wrong. I know what you're capable of, and you won't take me or my father's legacy. Her voice trembled, but defiance blazed within. Suddenly, she heard a soft voice behind her. You did it, Sarah. It was the child, standing just inside the faint glow, eyes now shimmering with hope. You fought them. You faced them. The shadows recoiled, seething at her conviction. They hissed, agitated and offended. You can't save everyone. You cannot touch what is ours. Maybe you're right, she replied, her confidence growing, but I can save those who still linger. I won't let fear have the last word. In that moment, she felt the remnants of the relic in her pocket, its power now a conduit of light waiting to be unleashed. She turned to the child, who stood firm. We can free them together. We'll bring the lost home. The child nodded, determination flickering in those innocent eyes. The light needs focus. Together, we can push it back. Their hold on us is weak if we believe. Sarah reached for the remnants, feeling its flicker against her fingertips. She joined hands with the child. On 3, 1, 2, 3. They shouted together. Peace and light be restored. The light swelled, gathering energy like a storm gathering clouds, illuminating the shadows that recoiled in fear. An explosion erupted, a deafening wave of brilliance that shattered the illusions of horror. The shadows thrashed, a cacophony of anguished wails, shrieks of anger and frustration swirling around them like a hurricane. The cries of lost souls surged around her, echoing voices from the prison she had traversed. Help us! Help us! They surrounded them, and Sarah sensed their pain wrap around her heart like icy fingers. Hold on! She yelled, her voice breaking through the noise. We are here for you. A radiant beam erupted from their clasped hands, piercing the shadows, illuminating pain, fear, and despair. Light exploded forth, enveloping the lost souls, and one by one, they broke free from the clutches of darkness, their cries morphing from terror to relief, floating peacefully into the heavens. Thank you. Thank you. Their voices intertwined, vibrant and joyful, echoing through the void, unraveling the fabric of darkness that had confined them. As more souls broke free, Sarah felt the dark figure thrashing in the background, rage piercing its heart. You cannot defeat me. I will return. It screeched, a fading whisper as the last tendrils of its shadows released their grip, swallowing the dark echoes until silence filled the void. Sarah released the child's hand, arms trembling with exhaustion and elation. They watched as the last of the souls ascended, miniatures of light disappearing into the vastness. Even in the aching silence, she felt victorious, she had unraveled a tether of an ancient curse. I did it, Sarah whispered, her chest swelling with emotion. She turned to the child, a mixture of sorrow and gratitude washing over her. We did it. The child stepped closer, a wistful smile on their face. Thank you for believing, Sarah. You freed us all. As the shadows washed away, a familiar silhouette appeared in the gentle light. Her father stood with a serene smile, radiant and proud, bathed in the warmth of the ethereal glow. You've made me proud, my brave girl. Sarah felt a lump swell in her throat, tears spilling from her eyes. I miss you, Dad, he nodded warmly. You've become everything I hoped you would be. You are stronger than you know. As he faded away, she felt a sense of closure sweep over her, a bittersweet farewell. The prison behind her now crumbled into dust, erased from existence. The town of Hope's Hollow began to breathe again, free from its haunting past. Goodbye, Sarah, until we meet again. The child whispered, dissolving into a gentle shimmer of light that floated through the air, taken by the tendrils of dawn rising on the horizon. Sarah stood alone, heart full yet aching, surrounded by the whispers of freedom. The dawn was breaking, a new day unfurling over the remnants of a cursed legacy. She took a deep breath, feeling lighter, unshackled from the burdens of the past, as she turned and walked away from Hope's Hollow into a future filled with promise, and as she disappeared into the morning light, she knew this was not just the end. It was a new beginning. Now, here is something important. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss another thrilling story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the stories alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this wild conclusion. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see it. Their journey in Hope's Hollow starts here. Don't wait one more second.